We're going down. 7-1 Whiskey going down.
It's Sunday, November 12th, 2017, a cool, overcast afternoon in Union City, Tennessee. A Piper Cherokee 6 lines up on the runway at Everett Stewart Regional Airport. On board, a father, his teenage son and 2 close friends, homebound after a weekend of hunting and time spent in the woods. At 1:03 p.m., the aircraft lifts into the sky, climbing steadily through the cool afternoon air as it begins its eastbound journey towards Somerset, Kentucky. At the controls is 41-year-old Scott Foster, an accomplished attorney from Somerset, Kentucky, confident and composed as he guides the aircraft east. Seated beside him is his 15-year-old son Noah, still riding the high of time spent outdoors with his dad and the men he looks up to. In the back are 2 of Scott's closest friends, 41-year-old Dr. Kyle Stewart, a well-known local dentist, and 40-year-old Doug Whitaker, a fellow attorney, decorated Air Force veteran, and former police chaplain. Inside the cabin, the mood is light and relaxed. The group is heading home from a boys' hunting weekend, tired, content, and looking forward to being reunited with their families. Only Scott knows about the surprise birthday celebration waiting in Somerset, quietly arranged by Doug Whitaker's wife, adding a subtle urgency to complete this return journey on time. "41-year-old Scott Foster is an accomplished attorney from Somerset, Kentucky, known for his sharp intellect, quiet determination, and deep devotion to his family and local community. He began flight training in 2014, completing his first solo flight that December. After progressing steadily over the next few years, FAA records show he was formally issued a private pilot certificate in July 2017, authorizing him to operate single-engine land aircraft under visual flight rules. He has logged approximately 256 total flight hours, 247 of them in this very aircraft. While confident in visual flying, Scott does not hold an instrument rating and is not certified to operate in instrument meteorological conditions. The flight departed Everett Stewart Regional Airport in Union City, Tennessee at 1:03 p.m. with the Cherokee 6 bound for Lake Cumberland Regional Airport in Somerset, Kentucky. The planned route spans a direct 218 nautical miles, an estimated flight time of approximately 1 hour and 40 minutes. Scott has not filed an official flight plan, instead choosing to operate under visual flight rules while receiving VFR flight following from Memphis Center, a service that provides basic radar monitoring and traffic advisories. For the first 30 minutes after takeoff, the flight continues uneventfully as expected. Cruising eastbound at 5,500 feet beneath a high overcast, November 3371 Whiskey remains in contact with Memphis Center with no signs of trouble. But as the Piper moves deeper into southern Kentucky, the atmosphere begins to change. Clouds gradually descend, the horizon softens into haze, and visibility begins to quietly deteriorate. This gradual shift in conditions aligns with broader forecasts and advisories already in place, warnings that suggest the weather ahead may be far less forgiving. Weather satellite data shows widespread cloud cover with tops reaching up to 15,000 feet, and forecasts for the destination call for lowering ceilings by mid-afternoon. An AirMet for IFR conditions, advising of ceilings below 1,000 feet and visibility under 3 miles in mist and precipitation, has already been issued for the region. Still, Scott presses on, seemingly confident that visual flight conditions will remain sufficient for the flight to Somerset. At 1:57 p.m. Central Time, just under an hour into the flight, Scott radios Memphis Center.
In Memphis Center, 7-1 Whiskey, we're going to vary our altitude up to maintain VFR.
Roger, November 7-1 Whiskey, no known or observed traffic.
Scott begins a climb out of 5,500 feet, attempting to stay clear of worsening weather ahead. By 1:58 p.m., radar shows the aircraft climbing through 6,600 feet. But rather than leveling off at a cruise altitude or maintaining a steady track, the aircraft begins to exhibit course deviations. Its heading fluctuates, and a series of gentle left and right turns are observed on radar, behavior that's unusual for a VFR pilot on a direct cross-country route. Moments later, the controller issues a general broadcast.
Attention all aircraft, hazardous weather information. Atlanta Center Weather Advisory 102, valid until 2200 Zulu. Patchy limited IFR ceilings below 500 feet and occasional visibility below 2 statute miles in fog and drizzle, expected to continue.
At 2:06, Scott checks in again. His voice is calm, but his words are revealing.
We hit some IMC. Is there any vectoring to an altitude here with some more visibility?
It's the first clear sign that Scott has lost visual reference, now flying in instrument meteorological conditions, something he's neither rated nor trained to handle.
Yeah, stand by. Maintain VFR.
Options are rapidly diminishing. The airspace ahead is increasingly obscured, and the Cherokee Six is now fully in instrument meteorological conditions, completely enveloped in cloud, with no external visual references remaining. Sensing the urgency, Memphis Center contacts Nashville Approach. They relay a request to Jetlink 1027, one of the few aircraft operating above the weather. Nashville responds moments later, and Memphis relays the following to Scott.
November 7-1 Whiskey, can you make it to... How high can you go? I have a Jetlink that was inbound to Nashville. He said the tops were around 8,000 or so.
Yeah, we can head to 8,000, 7-1 Whiskey.
Roger, November 7-1 Whiskey. Once you get on top, it should be clear. He said around 8,000 or so, the clouds.
But the climb never materializes. Radar data shows the aircraft continuing along an erratic track, with its altitude oscillating between 7,000 and 7,300 feet. Instead of a steady course, the Cherokee Six begins a series of shallow, uncoordinated turns, indicating increasing difficulty maintaining both heading and altitude. At 2:08 and 41 seconds, the Cherokee Six banks gently right at 7,300 feet, cruising at 144 knots. But the turn tightens fast. Bank angle increases. Altitude begins to decrease. In just 17 seconds, the aircraft plummets nearly 1,600 feet. At 2:08 and 58 seconds, Scott's voice breaks through the static, strained, clipped, and final.
We're going down. 7-1 Whiskey going down.
Sadly, this is the last transmission from November 3371 Whiskey.
November 7-1 Whiskey, radio check. November 7-1 Whiskey.
As the aircraft vanished from radar, a local deer hunter, perched in a tree stand deep in the Kentucky woods, spotted the Piper Cherokee Six as it burst through the cloud layer in a steep, spiraling descent, no more than 400 feet above the ground. Within seconds, it disappeared behind the trees, followed by a sudden, echoing bang. The hunter immediately contacted authorities. Later that afternoon, search teams located the wreckage in a densely wooded area near Fountain Run, Kentucky. The debris was concentrated in a small area, with the fuselage wedged between trees and significant damage to the wings and tail section. There were no signs of fire. All 4 occupants, Scott, Noah, Kyle, and Doug, were tragically confirmed deceased at the scene. The National Transportation Safety Board determined the probable cause of the accident to be the non-instrument-rated pilot's intentional visual flight rules flight into instrument meteorological conditions, which resulted in a loss of control due to spatial disorientation. Contributing to the crash, Investigators cited the pilot's self-induced pressure to complete the flight, a behavior often referred to as get-there-itis, a common trap in general aviation where the desire to reach a destination clouds sound judgment. In this case, a surprise party awaiting the group's return in Somerset may have added subtle emotional urgency. Though the aircraft was mechanically sound, the skies ahead were not. An air met for IFR conditions had been issued earlier that day, warning of ceilings below 1,000 feet and limited visibility in mist and fog. By the time of the crash, surrounding airports were reporting overcast layers as low as 500 feet above ground level, with cloud tops extending beyond 8,000 feet. Scott Foster, while a competent and cautious pilot in visual conditions, did not hold an instrument rating. He had logged only 5.9 hours of simulated instrument training, far short of what's required to safely operate without visual reference. When he entered the clouds, his senses would have become unreliable. As the NTSB explains, without visual references outside the aircraft, there are many situations in which normal motions and forces create convincing illusions that are difficult to overcome. This loss of spatial awareness, known as spatial disorientation, can lead a pilot to believe the aircraft is flying straight and level when it's actually banking or descending. Radar data showing a tightening turn and rapid altitude loss is consistent with a graveyard spiral, a phenomenon in which a disoriented pilot, unable to trust their senses or instruments, inadvertently enters a fatal spin. In the end, it was not a lack of skill or care, but a perfect storm of worsening weather, limited training, and human vulnerability that brought down an otherwise sound flight. Scott Foster was a devoted father, a loyal friend, and a man who loved to fly, not recklessly, but with pride and purpose. That pride carried him into the sky on a quiet Sunday afternoon, joined by 3 people who meant the world to him: Kyle Stewart, a compassionate dentist and family man; Doug Whitaker, a man of faith, integrity, and service; and Noah Foster, just 15 years old, sharing one more adventure with his dad. Honoring these lives means learning from their loss. It means respecting the weather, recognizing limitations, and having the courage to turn back, even when everything in you wants to press forward. Because in aviation, humility can be the most powerful safety device of all, and sometimes the hardest decision to make is the one that saves everyone on board.